If you've ever wanted your team members to take more initiative, show more ownership, and run your business for you, this is the video you need. Because I got bad news. If they're not doing this, as a leader, it's your fault. It's one of two things. You've either hired the wrong people or you haven't given them the tools that they need in order to operate the way you want them to operate. Now, if you think it's a hiring problem, I shot a whole video on my hiring process. You should check it out. It's called The Talent Pipeline. It's killer. But if you don't think it's that, and you think that it's the tools and that you need to empower your team members to operate this way, I'm gonna go through in this video my top 5 playbooks to make sure that my team members are pushing aggressively towards driving incredible results for my company. All right, this first playbook I learned from a mentor of mine, Dan Martell. It's called the 10-80-10. Now I want you to just think through the art of delegation with me for a minute, right? And think through a time in your own business when it went really poorly, when you lost a ton of time, you blew a deadline because the person you handed the project to couldn't pull it off the way you wanted it done. If you think about how this normally works, a lot of the time you have a little conversation up front, right? And then you hand the project off to the team and they go all the way to what is supposed to be the finish line before you check it out again. And then you look at the project and you have this holy shit moment, like this thing is way off the mark and it is in no way what I actually wanted. And then this is where deadlines get blown and budgets get exceeded and bad results happen, because then you got to go all the way back to the beginning and do all this rework. It is super inefficient. It feels really smart up here at the beginning. We're like, oh, I talked to my team for 3 minutes and they're off and running, but it's actually incredibly wasteful and incredibly risky. So the way that I do this instead is called the 10-80-10. And here's how it works. Pretty simple. I get much more involved up front, deeply involved as an individual contributor on the first 10% of the project. I want to make sure that they know the vision, that they know the outcomes, clear, measurable, quantitative results that we're driving. I'm super involved. And when I feel like all of that stuff is crystal clear, then I hand it off and I tell them specifically, bring this back to me when you think you're at about 90%. Don't wait for us to be all the way up against the deadline. Don't put the polish on it. Don't think you're finished. Bring it back to me at 90%. And then the last 10%, I get deeply involved again, just like an individual contributor, to make sure that it's hitting the mark the way that I need it to. I can't tell you how many hundreds of hours and tens of thousands of dollars I've saved in my projects simply by being a little bit more involved at the front and a little bit more involved at the end. I would highly recommend that you give this a try, because the time investment you make will pay off insanely well in the long run. The second principle that I've implemented that has paid insane dividends for me is called the high tempo operating rhythm. It's a set of daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly activities that are used for 2 purposes. Number 1 is to make sure that I, as the CEO, know exactly what's going on in the business. Number 2 is to make sure that I'm sharing information appropriately with the right people at the right time, so they know what's going on in the business, so that way they can make better decisions and we don't have to go back and make them twice. Here's how it works. It starts with the daily checks. There's 3 big areas that I check every single working day inside any of my companies. Doesn't mean these are the only things I look at, but these are the non-negotiables. The first is cash flow. Every single day, we have a daily cash email that goes out that says what's our daily cash balance, what are our upcoming liabilities and credit card balances, and gives us like a net cash position so I can make sure that the business from a cash standpoint is in a healthy place. The second one is not something most people guess. It's customer support. I don't go a single day without looking at the customer support tickets that come in and make sure they're getting answered appropriately, getting answered at like a top 1% in the world level, because I truly, truly believe that making sure your customer support is dialed is a crazy competitive advantage that most people sleep on. And number 3 is sales pipeline. I always want to see like how many demo requests came in, what's our calendar look like, what's our calendar capacity utilization. Like, I just want to understand how much pipeline's coming in, because it's a really good predictor of future sales progress. The next level is the weekly level. There's only one thing that's a non-negotiable for me every single week, and it's looking at our precision scorecard. It's checking all the data and KPIs. I do this every Monday morning for the prior business week, so I know exactly how we perform top to bottom. Now for our business, I look at like 150 different data points. We pull it all in through our software. It's pretty slick. Most of it's automated. It's got like red, yellow, green ratings and attainment percentages and DRIs, so I know who owns the metrics. But this is a really important Monday morning ritual, because I use it to drive our weekly meetings where everyone in the team gets to see all the data so that they understand how the business is performing too. This is probably the most important part of everything I'm going to run through in this video, is reviewing your precision scorecard every single week. So after this, let's step up to the monthly rhythm. There are 3 non-negotiables that I run every single month. The first is a performance review. It's very similar to the precision scorecard where we're looking at things weekly, except now we're looking at the data on a monthly trend, and we look at the prior 12 months so I can see like big picture, how are we performing and what direction are we pointed on all of our key metrics. The next item on my monthly list is called a deal audit. I look at every deal that we won and I figure out where they came from, at least to the best of my ability. There's always going to be 1 or 2 unknowns, but I want to have a really good finger on the pulse of which marketing channels and which salespeople are driving the best results for the business, and I do that on a monthly basis. Last thing on the monthly list is a financial review. So every single month we get the books closed by our finance team. We take a look at them. We got our P&L, our cash flow, and our balance sheet. I spend most of my time here on the P&L because I'm already getting daily updates on our cash position. And I look at the P&L, I'm looking for a few things, right? Like your revenue should be broken out ideally by product line. You've got all your different expenses broken out. I'm just patrolling for variances generally. Like I want to see which accounts went up, which accounts went down in enough of a like material sense where I want to have an explanation for it, and then I make sure I go talk to the person who's in charge of it, or ask myself if it's me, make sure that there's a good explanation for why we had the movement. It's as simple as that. You just got to keep your eye on the ball when it comes to your money, because if you let this thing go, 3 months, 6 months, a year, you'll find that your cost ends up totally out of whack, and the business that you started initially to generate profit for yourself is costing you money every single month. It's a really crappy place to be. All right, the last rhythm we cover here as part of this system is my quarterly rhythm. There's 1 non-negotiable that I do every single quarter, and that's our goal setting exercise. I strongly believe that quarterly is the right amount of time to set goals. You can plan a project, gives you 13 weeks, 13 shots on goal to get the project done, and then you come back up for air and plan the next one. So the quarterly goal setting is another critical rhythm that I install in every company I run. Now, I know that might feel like a lot, but if you look at everything down here on this iPad, you'll realize that all the way from daily performance to quarterly goals, you will have all of the context that you could possibly need to arm your team members to make independent decisions. Like if this feels like a lot of work, it's a little bit of work, you're not wrong. But like if your team members can't make great decisions based off the information that you give them from this rhythm, that's how you know it's actually a hiring problem, and you should probably get someone who's capable of operating the way you want to operate. So that's the operating rhythm. The third principle I'm going to talk about here is one of my favorites. It's called the 1-3-1. I've discovered this phenomenon over the years working with people. It's that they'll come to me and ask me questions about things that they actually already know the answer to. They just didn't realize that they already knew the answer because they didn't spend enough time thinking about the question. It's crazy, and the 1-3-1 is the best method that I know to help people realize that they already know everything they need to know in order to make great decisions. Here's how it works. I have them actually write this out. We even made like a Slack bot for this in our company Slack, but it's got 3 main components. Component number 1 is just write out the problem, right? So you just take a minute and figure out exactly what it is you're trying to solve in like 1 to 2 paragraphs max, and what the outcome is that you're trying to achieve. The middle section, the 3, is where they write down 3 viable options. And the key word here is viable, right? You can't just write down the one that you want and then 2 others that are like complete bullshit, because that's not actually going to help you make better decisions. You need to really think through, like you'll write down the one that you really want to do, and then ask yourself the question, if that was off the table and for whatever reason it was impossible to do, what would I do instead? And then you come up with a second one, then you throw that one away, do the same thought exercise, and write down a third one. That's how I coach people to do it. So they actually have 3 legitimate, well thought out options for executing the play. The last part is their recommendation. 1 recommendation. So out of the 3 options, they need to pick the one that they think we should go with. Now, as the leader, this is beautiful because I know a number of things from reading a 1-3-1. I know how they're thinking about the problem, and if they're thinking about it differently than me, then we need to get on the same page. I know that they've thought through more than the first solution that came to their mind, right? Because the first solution is rarely the best one. And then I know which one they're recommending and why. And what I found is that when you tell someone to do a 1-3-1 after they ask you a question, they'll go away, they'll do the 1-3-1, they'll come back and they'll be like, Matt, I don't actually need you anymore. I don't have a question. I have a recommendation. Here's what I think we should do. And I can tell you, I can count on one hand the number of times that I've gone against a recommendation in a 1-3-1 because my team is almost always right. It's a beautiful way to get them thinking for themselves. All right, principle number 4 is something I call the weekly CEO note. This is something that I started with my latest company, Precision, and honestly, I love doing it, and my team's told me that they like getting them, so I guess I'm gonna keep doing it. Here's what it is every single Monday morning, I take a few minutes. I actually started on Sunday night, don't tell anyone. But every Monday morning, I ship this note. And I take a few minutes and I just write down basically 4 things. I write down, like, what am I thinking about in the context of the business, right? I want them to know, like, what am I seeing in the market? How's the product evolving? What are we doing strategically? Like, I just gotta get those thoughts out of my head. It helps me to get them written down, but it also helps my team so that way they know what I'm thinking about, so they know what to be thinking about too. After I get that part done, which is like the intro to the little letter, then I just hit like the main sections of the business, right? So I talk about our product, I talk about our revenue, talk about our media, and I talk about operations. At our size, that covers pretty much everything we need to talk about. And I just like give little blurbs of like what's coming up in the product and how we performed on revenue and what's happening in operations, you know, like what content did we ship last week in media. It's just a high level overview with how we did and how I'm feeling about it, because that lets us roll into our weekly meetings with all the context building out of the way, so then we can focus on tactics and execution, and we operate insanely fast because everyone's already up to speed, so we don't have to waste time getting up to speed. Now, so if you want a template for how I do this, I'll give it to you. It's a Notion template. You can copy and paste it and steal it for yourself. Just go to mattverlaque.com/CEO and you can download it for free. All right, the 5th and last principle I'm gonna give you to make sure your team members know how to run your company for you, man, I took this straight from like Jeff Bezos, Wade Foster from Zapier. Like, there's great precedent for this one. It's called all hands support. And here's what it is. It's very simple. Every single person in your company needs to participate in customer support. Period. Full stop. Read the book Working Backwards. It's all about Amazon. There's a great case study in there about how Bezos had like some critical product insights simply from talking with customers about products that were out of stock on Amazon. It's wild how much context can be gained simply by helping customers do the things they need help with. So what I would recommend is that every single person on your team needs to at least participate in customer support once every couple of months. If you're a bigger company, like a small company like Precision, we're 5 people at the time I'm shooting this video, everybody's on support all the time. It's not optional, you just help your customers when they need help. It's very simple, but everyone's got the context about what's causing customers pain, what's bringing them joy, what's hard to understand about our software, and there is no replacement for customer feedback. It is the oxygen that will keep your innovation alive, so keep your team members talking to your customers as often as you possibly can. All right, I just threw a whole lot at you, but if you're sitting here in this video at this point, I can tell that you are dedicated to putting all of this in play at your business and letting your team members actually run the company for you, which is the dream. That's what we all have always wanted. So put this stuff in play. I guarantee you will see better results. Now, if you want the template that I mentioned earlier for the weekly CEO note, you can get it at mattverlaque.com/CEO. Outside of that, make sure you subscribe to this channel, hit the little notification bell so that way you see when our new videos come out. We're putting them out every single week. Really appreciate you guys hanging out with me, and I'll see you next week for our video. See ya.